The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to the Hoop Ball NBA DFS Today Podcast. Today is Tuesday, October 9th, and I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. I will be coming to you today by myself, doing a solo podcast, and that's the way we're going to roll on Monday evenings when we record this for our Tuesday show. Generally, Tuesdays are a little bit lighter, and so I'm going to tackle those by my lonesome. So it'll just be our dedicated listeners and me, and we'll go through everything we need to get you ready to crush it for the upcoming games that will be played on Tuesday. So as you know, we're off to a fantastic start. We've had a great weekend, really turning some profit here. I know Mike Apotria, who's normally on with me, is also doing very well. So we're excited to keep this early momentum going. We have a nice 4-card slate for Tuesday, which locks at 6:30 Central Time. So gives everybody plenty of time to get in some good, strong contests. There's some good contests and slates on both FanDuel and DraftKings tomorrow for NBA preseason, so that should be great. I also want to mention our presenting sponsor is Fantasy Draft. We really appreciate Fantasy Draft partnering with us here at Hoop Ball to bring these free content, really best-in-class podcasts to the forefront for you. We're doing this throughout the entire preseason, and then we'll also be going 7 days a week when the regular season rolls around on October 22nd. So very excited and thankful that Fantasy Draft has jumped on board. Now, their contests will begin full-fledged on October 22nd. They're going to have a huge initial kickoff contest there, so definitely looking forward to that. In the meantime, do go to fantasydraft.com and sign up with the promo code HoopBall, and that'll give you 7-day free membership up to $1,000 in tournament fees. And, the one thing about Fantasy Draft, and we're going to mention it all the time because they're the only ones out there that do it, is they are completely rake-free. So they have, for example, this Sunday, the $500,000 Hooters Challenge, and it's a guaranteed $500K event and totally rake-free. So everything that goes in comes out, and you cannot beat that. There's nobody else out there that has rake-free as an option. And, since they've started it here, I think it's been probably about 6 weeks. It's amazing how much you save in rake. They give you an update on how much you save each week in rake, and it adds up big time. So jump in there and really support Fantasy Draft. Also, I'll mention right now, our Hoop Ball NBA DFS Today podcast can be heard everywhere that podcasts can be found. We're pushed out by Red Circle, another one of our partners. And so you can catch us really on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. So we're 7 days a week. We're going to bring all the main slates to you, and we want to partner with you throughout the season to help you really turn a profit in NBA DFS. All right, excellent. Let's get started with the slate. The first game on the slate tomorrow is the San Antonio Spurs versus the Miami Heat. That is that first tip-off. And as we know with the Spurs, we mentioned in the first go-around, Pop is notorious for sitting, resting, rotating guys. I mean, he sort of brought that to the forefront before anybody else was doing it. And of course, he does that a lot in preseason. It was interesting in their first preseason game, DeMar DeRozan was scratched, not for health reasons, just because they decided they were going to give him a night off, and he got scratched, I think, with about 8 or 10 minutes left before lock. So I know a lot of that had a lot of people scrambling to replace him. So, like I discussed with Mike on the show, on their first game, I have a tendency to shy away a little bit from the Spurs, in general in the preseason, just because of sort of that Popovich factor of sitting, resting, rotating guys. However, I'm going to go out of the box a little bit here, and I think DeRozan is a good play. I think that he'll get a decent run because he is healthy. He did sit that first game. And he is pretty ball dominant. His usage is high when he's out on the floor. So DeRozan's going to be a guy that I'll be recommending for tomorrow's slate. The rest of the squad, they're pretty healthy. You're going to see, I think, a decent run. A lot of these preseason games with Murray and White in the backcourt. Because I think that's looking like going to be, it very well could be their starting backcourt, and should be. I mean, they're the two best players on that in that backcourt, and so they may be worth a bit of a play, especially Murray. I know he did well fantasy-wise in that first game. I think White will also do decently. Certainly, he played his tail off in the whole FIBA deal with Pop, and I doubt I'll use White throughout the preseason until the regular season starts, just because I think he'll get a little bit more rest in that rotation than everybody else. The other guy that I like a lot is Lonnie Walker. I know they want to get him minutes. I think he's got a ton of talent, and he can play multiple positions. So Lonnie Walker's a good value guy, I think, for tomorrow's card as well. As far as the bigs, there's just such a rotation there of those guys. LaMarcus Aldridge, Rudy Gay, Jakob Poeltl. If Trey Lyles comes back, he may get a little run. DeMari Carroll had also been out. He may get a little run. So there's just a lot of congestion there, and I just don't see, with Miami's good interior defense, with Bam and such, when they do get the run, that they're going to be worth it. So to wrap up really on the Spurs, it's going to be DeRozan, Lonnie Walker for me, and then if I do get into a couple multiple lineup GPPs, I may put Murray in there a little bit as well. Okay, let's move over to the other side of that game, which is the Miami Heat. Obviously, some interesting news sort of with the Heat. I thought it was worth mentioning. They sent James Johnson home for reporting to camp over the weight guidelines that they had put out for their players. They're very, very tough on the whole being in shape, staying in the weight realm of what their expectations are. So Johnson is still away from the team, which really allows the big rotation, for Bam to get a decent run. Kelly Olynyk is another option that can be utilized. The whole Justice Winslow, is he going to play the 4? Is he going to slide over and play a little 3? Is he going to start at the 1 when the regular season rolls around? like he wants to. The jury's completely still out on that. But, Winslow certainly will get some minutes, in what role or capacity, that's still to be determined, but certainly an option as well. In the backcourt, you've got Goran Dragic, who's healthy, and again, he's never a guy they're going to play many minutes. Very restricted in the preseason, but he'll get some run. Dion Waiters, I've read good things about him. He's come to camp in shape, and he's had some weight issues in past endeavors with the Thunder and some different teams prior to coming to the Heat. So it's good to see that he's in really good shape. I'm sure you'll get a limited run from Jimmy Butler as well. What can he produce in probably the 20 minutes or so he's going to get is the question. Is that going to be enough, to dent the lineup? I'm not sure. That's a tough one, but he's probably going to be on the outside looking in for me this week. Tyler Hero is a guy that just really enjoyed watching him in summer camp. His shooting exploits were just amazing. I think he's a guy that if he gets some good run, which I think they want to get him into their real rotation come regular season, he may be another good pivot to that if you're looking for those value guys under the radar. So I think you got to consider Bam without question. Again, Spoelstra's notorious for not overplaying his guys in preseason. So the Heat are not a super big target. Plus, they are playing against the Spurs that have a terrific defense. This would be the type of game in the regular season, Spurs and Heat, that would be somewhat of a pass game just because of the pace of play that they play and the defensive prowess that they both show. But, that being said, I may get a little bit of Bam in the lineup and a little bit of Tyler Hero as one of the value plays. But some of those other guys mentioned, I wouldn't fault anybody for rotating them in. But I think we have a lot of other good options with the other three games on the slate. Okay, let's move on to game 2. It is a 7 p.m. Central Standard Time game. It's the Dallas Mavericks. They've already announced 3 players out. J.J. Barea and Dwight Powell are out for sure, and DeLon Wright is doubtful. So there's a few guys that they'll be sitting. Carlisle always is super, super protective in the preseason, and I expect that that'll be the case throughout. I will not be targeting Mavericks guys for a couple of reasons in the preseason. They do have a tremendous amount of depth, and they have a lot of guys on the roster right now that they're wanting to take a look at. Normally I target guys that are trying to make the team or make the roster, and you can identify 1 or 2 of those on every team. Unfortunately, Dallas has about 6 or 7 of them. I mean, when you start talking about, and I'll just buzz through this, but when you talk about, you're going to be getting minutes for Brunson, and, Luke is going to get a little run. Seth Curry, Jalen Brunson, Justin Jackson, Tim Hardaway, Courtney Lee, probably a little Ryan Brokoff in there. Dorian Finney-Smith, Isaiah Roby, the rookie, Maxi Kleba. Even with a few of the guys out, with JJ and Powell and possibly Wright out, and Boban is another big guy that'll get a few minutes, probably 10, 15 minutes. So again, there's a lot of depth, a lot of rotation, a lot of pass for me on this team. I think that once he gets to his normal, 8-9 man rotation closer to the regular season. Usually does the game before the regular season starts. He'll do somewhat, of a run through of what his rotation will be. And at that time, I think we can certainly target Luka, Porzingis, guys like that. But as of now, I think Dallas is going to be a pass for me, and I'm a big Mavs guy. So, all right, they will be playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the only guy announced out for them right now is Andre Roberson. He is going to be out for probably the majority of the preseason. So, again, the Thunder team, tough one to call. You've got some big time veterans that I'm sure will get some run. That 15 to 20, maybe 25 if we're lucky, run for guys like Chris Paul, Steven Adams, Danilo Gallinari, and people like that. But I am not going to target those guys simply because I think, the majority of the minutes and the guys trying to really earn some time on the floor. I think the guys I'm going to look at in this game are Shea, Gilgeous-Alexander. I think that he'll get a lot of run at the point. I think also Nerlens Noel. They've talked about the fact that he's going to play a bigger role. There's also a lot of chatter about Adams being traded, which would elevate him to the starting position. So I think Noel's going to be a pretty much lock for me tomorrow. He's another guy that, is a good fantasy points per minute because of the blocks and rebounds, and he can finish at the rim. And so I think he's a good target for this preseason game tomorrow. Another guy you may want to think about is Diallo. Hamidou Diallo. I can never pronounce his first name, but he can throw up some points pretty quickly, along with Terrence Ferguson. Those are two guys on the periphery that may be considered, but it's probably going to be a Shea, Nerlens Noel Thunder day for me. Okay, busting right into game 3. And game 3 is the Minnesota Timberwolves against Phoenix. And that's a 9 p.m., so a later game Central Standard Time. Right now, the guys out in this game for Minnesota, Jordan Bell's been ruled out. And Phoenix has 3 key guys out: Bridges, Oubre, and possibly Baines. More than likely Baines. He has nasal fracture, and I did read something. They were going to try to get him some minutes, but he also has a groin strain. So it sort of makes no sense, especially when he was one of the heavy minutes FIBA guys for Team Australia. So I am going to eliminate Bridges, Oubre, Baines for sure. All right, so let's look at Minnesota first. It should be very interesting. They've got a mixture of guys returning, and they're looking to add some new guys into the mix and create some chemistry. So I think the Timberwolves is definitely a team that you can look at and use some guys fairly consistently. I think Cat is fine. I mean, there's going to be so much salary left over when you utilize some of these value guys. Cat in 20, 25 minutes can put up plenty of fantasy points to carry his weight. So he's certainly a guy that is high on my list. I think that the guards, you're going to have a lot of depth there rotating, beyond, the Teague and Wiggins and Okogie and Culver. There are some young guys, Trayvon Graham, Shabazz Napier, Jordan McLaughlin, and guys that are all going to get minutes. So I'm going to steer clear for them. Two guys actually you may want to consider is Jared Culver, the rookie. He did not play in the summer leagues. So I think that, they're going to try to get him some minutes. He's healthy, and they want to get him some time out there with his teammates. So Culver is a definite option, I think, throughout the entire preseason. And the other guy that is Jake Layman. He's a new guy to the team. They've said that he has the potential to possibly start. And so I think that he's going to play hard. He is absolutely a strong fantasy minutes, points per minute guy. So Jake Layman, to me, is a good option in this game tomorrow. So I could see myself going Cat, Jake Layman, and maybe a little Jared Culver in a couple of my GPP plays. But that's looking like who I'm going to target T-Wolves wise. And then over to the Phoenix side. Again, Phoenix has some of their key guys out, which could create a little bit of ability for some other guys to get extra minutes. I don't see them playing Rubio a whole lot in the preseason as far as just any game where he's going to log many minutes. He's an 8-year veteran, even though he's only 28 years old, but he was the player of the FIBA tournament, the MVP, and led Spain to the championships and logged more minutes than anybody in the entire FIBA contest. So I will be eliminating Rubio pretty much all preseason, but then a guy that I will look at once the season starts because I think he's just such a great fit for the Suns. There are some guys on the squad, I think, that are definitely usable. I think, with Baines out and Kaminsky questionable, I think DeAndre Ayton will get a decent run, and obviously he'll be a little bit higher price, but I think he'll put up some numbers. And obviously Devin Booker, he played a decent amount of minutes in the preseason games last year, more than most guys do. So, you can go star-packed here with a Booker-Ayton combination or one or the other. If you're looking for a couple of your pivots on some of the more affordable guys, I think Cam Johnson, the rookie, has been getting rave reviews in this week of camp so far, and I think he'll get a good run. So he'll definitely be one of my value guys that I'm going to target for this slate in Cam Johnson. And other than that, there's a lot of backup guards that are going to get a few minutes. Tyler Johnson, Javon Carter, Eli Akobo, guys that are trying to make the team, but I just don't see them, on a 4-game slate having to utilize any of them. So don't be afraid to spend the bucks on Booker and Ayton and expect Cam Johnson to get a strong look. If there's Dario Saric guys out there, go for it. I just don't see a big need to really push the Dario Saric button at this point. So, all right, excellent. We have one game to go, and want to mention just briefly again that Fantasy Draft is our presenting sponsor. Please make sure and get on Fantasy Draft and enjoy that rake-free, especially the Sunday Hooters contest for $500,000 guaranteed. Definitely want to get on there. And if you do go, if you're new to Fantasy Draft, make sure when you sign up you use the promo code HoopBall. Also, any of questions or anything you want to share with us as far as information for upcoming shows, you can always find me on Twitter at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi, and my partner that usually does this show with me at Mike Apotria, MIKAPOTRIA. Definitely want to give him a shout. And Andrew Hansen will be joining us for a couple of shows this week. He's going to be our third guy for this season, and his Twitter is at Language Olympic, just like it sounds, Language Olympic. So, hit us up there with any questions, comments, feedback, and we'll definitely bring some of that to the table on our shows. Also, when I mentioned earlier that you could find us anywhere where podcasts are found. If you have the opportunity, please take a chance on there, or take the time, I should say, to rate, review, and subscribe. Those 5 stars, the thumbs up, the good comments, they mean a lot to our sponsors. And, we wouldn't bring this show forward if it wasn't for Hoopball and Fantasy Draft and all of the people behind the scenes. So we'd really appreciate that. All right, last game, we go with the Denver Nuggets. And huge news there is that Mr. Jokic is not going to play. He's going to get this first preseason game off after he's another FIBA guy that logs some solid minutes. And so I think they want to just give him a little bit of a breather. So that does open up some big man possibilities. But the problem is there's so much depth there. Denver is, in my opinion, the deepest team in the league, bar none. And they're going to be a tough play, other than Jokic probably and maybe Murray on some games. It's just so hard to count on any of these guys because of the depth, even in preseason. Like, for example, the big 4 or 5 guys with Jokic sitting out and Bol not playing yet, you still have Mason Plumlee, Paul Millsap, Jeremy Grant, Tyler Zeller, Juancho Hernan-Gomez, and Michael Porter Jr., who can play a little 4. So, I mean, it's a tough call, man. I'm not comfortable recommending any of those guys because I just see too many 15 to 18-minute guys in there. As far as the backcourt and even the small forward folks, I mean, you've got Jamal Murray, Monty Morris, Will Barton, Gary Harris, Torrey Craig. They are so damn deep. It's just crazy. So, who do you focus in on here, or who do you play? For me, more than likely, I'm going to pass on Denver. There is a little bit of a battle for playing time between Torrey Craig, Will Barton, and Michael Porter Jr. For who may start at the 3. So, I could see making a case for any of those guys. I just don't see any of them getting an extended run that would warrant me playing them on a 4-game slate. So that's what I've got for Denver. Sorry that for the Nuggets supporters out there, but it's actually a compliment. I mean, they're so deep and so talented that it's hard to really solidify who you want to take that's going to get it done for you in DFS, other than Jokic, and he's not playing. So, all right, let's go to the last team, the Portland Trail Blazers. Portland is an interesting team. They've got some changes this year. They brought in Hassan Whiteside, and he is questionable for this game, which I think when you say Hassan Whiteside, you can pretty much say questionable for like his career. You just never know if or when he's going to play, and if he does, is he going to do anything? And you just pray that when you do take your shot at him, he has that 18-point, 20-rebound, 5-block game, because he's very capable of it. It's just you never know when the hell he's going to do it. So, he may be out. He may get a few minutes. Who knows? I'm not sure how that's going to roll. You got your Lillard-McCollum backcourt. Certainly, they will not be pushed hard during the preseason. Are they going to get a 20-minute run where their stats are going to be good enough, to plug in there? I don't know at their salaries. In my opinion, it makes it a little bit tough. I prefer Anthony Simons. I'm so impressed by this kid, watching him play in summer, and then in some of these in some of the games at the end of last year. I think he'll get a decent run because I think that they're trying to groom him to be that guard off the bench to take Evan Turner's spot from last year because he moved on to another team. And, if Simons is really going to be a guard that is in their rotation, they're going to want to get him, some good minutes in the preseason. So he's going to be a very often target for me throughout this preseason cycle. And he's explosive. I think he's only 20 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So, again, he's a baby, and he needs as much playing time out there as he can get. And I think he'll be one of those beneficiaries in the preseason. So that's one target for me. After that, you've got a lot of depth of guys that I'm sure will rotate in the Rodney Hoods, Kent Bazemores, Hinojas. They still have Anthony Tolliver. I can't believe he's still in the game. Zach Collins is expected to play. He's not 100%. And when somebody's not 100% in preseason, even if they are going to play, that's a cross-off for me because it makes no sense. I just can't see anybody being pushed preseason-wise. Other big is Scala Bicieres on the team. Is he going to get some run? Probably, and he could be if you have the stones to do it. I mean, Scal could be a great play tomorrow. It's just so hard to take up a center spot and plug him in there. With all the good players on the board, but I would not blame you for doing so in a minute. And he's the kind of guy that could break the slate. So I know it's hard to say Scala Bicieres could break a slate, but if he gets 30 minutes, which is possible with so many bigs out for them, he could do some damage. But Simons is going to be my target here for sure. And other than that, it'll be more of a pass. So I think that's it. Trying to keep the shows a little bit tighter on time, just to make sure we get to the games in a little bit more, timely and quicker fashion, so that when everybody is taking these in, and we're doing them the night before and releasing them either later this evening or first thing in the morning, because we want our listeners to be able to listen through all of this either in their morning commute or during a break at work or when you're working or at lunchtime, whatever it is. But our goal was not to do a show that's right before lock and everybody's panicking to try to make a lineup, or I've done that myself, trying to change lineups on your phone when you're driving home from work. And it's the worst thing. Don't do that, by the way, ever. Very dangerous. But so we want to give you the opportunity to listen to these shows and take in all the information, give you a chance to evaluate it. We're going to do the same thing in the regular season. And then I would recommend, tomorrow as the day's going on, myself, Mike, Andrew, we're all going to be on Twitter, posting anything we see, guys that are out, changes, things going on, news. And then you want to also follow at Hoopball Fantasy. We have a huge team that's phenomenal at Hoopball that blurbs and posts things as soon as they pop on Twitter or anywhere else in the basketball world. They're going to let you know. So, you want to see that, because the last thing you ever want to do in any fantasy is take a zero. And in preseason, it's a lot easier to make that error and get a zero. And if you can just avoid that, thus far, knock on wood, and I'm knocking on wood right now, in these first 4 days, I have not taken a zero yet. And, that's helped me get off to such a great start. But, stay aware of what's going on, the news that's popping out. Follow all of us on Twitter, and we'll keep you up to speed. So that is it. The first solo show of the season is in the books. We're about 30 minutes. Isn't bad for a 4-game slate. And that's it, man. So thank you so much for joining us for Hoopball NBA DFS today. For our whole Hoopball team, I am Coach, and we'll look forward to catching you again tomorrow night. I'll be on here with Mr. Apotria, and we'll break down another slate tomorrow night, which is going to be a 5-game slate. So join us then, and we look forward to crushing it and making sure that you get off to a nice fat bankroll in your DFS season. Have a good one. Thanks.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.